Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're getting right into something really vital, mental strength.
Hmm.
And let's just, ditch the idea that it's some fixed thing you're born with.
Right. That's a common misconception.
Our sources are pretty clear. It's actually a set of behaviors, thoughts, actions, things you develop, things you can absolutely build.
Exactly. And that's our mission for this deep dive, really, to pull out the practical daily habits, the things that actually form the bedrock of mental toughness.
Yeah.
If you've ever seen someone handle intense pressure, seemingly so calm, and wondered, how?
How do they do that?
Yeah. We're aiming to give you some of those answers today.
Because it isn't about one single trick, is it? Or just like finding willpower out of nowhere.
Not at all.
What really jumped out at me from the material is how mental strength works more like an ecosystem.
Oh, that's a great analogy.
Think about it. A healthy forest isn't just trees, right?
Right,
It needs
right.
the soil, the insects, the climate.
Yeah.
Everything's interconnected.
Perfectly put. And it shows why just focusing on one technique, like, say, repeating affirmations,
Right.
often doesn't cut it for people. It's like trying to save that struggling forest by only planting, I don't know, oak trees
Right.
while ignoring everything else that's wrong.
Yeah, ignoring the soil quality or the rainfall. So, who are the big players in this mental strength ecosystem then? What should people focus on?
Well, the sources consistently point to 5 main areas. First up is emotional regulation.
Okay, so managing feelings without getting swamped by them.
Precisely. Then you've got thought patterns, basically, the
Nice.
stories you tell yourself about what happens.
And physical habits, which seems obvious but maybe gets overlooked. How you treat your body.
Hugely important.
Yeah.
And the other 2 are social connections, the
Eh?
people around you, your support system.
Right.
And finally, self-awareness, just being able to tune in and understand your own reactions.
Okay, and here's where it gets really interesting, I think. These 5 things aren't separate silos.
No, they feed into each other.
It's like a positive feedback loop. So, for example, you focus on getting better sleep, and that directly helps your emotional regulation.
Right, you're less reactive.
And when you're less reactive, your thinking becomes clearer. Maybe you make better decisions. Maybe you even feel more motivated to, say, exercise.
It's an upward spiral.
Yeah.
And it can start with pretty small, consistent actions.
Yeah.
And there's actually solid evidence for this. A 2019 study, I think it was in the Journal of Personality,
Okay.
found that interventions hitting multiple aspects of, well, psychological functioning were way more effective for building resilience than just focusing on one thing.
So it's the synergy, the combination is key.
Exactly. That's what makes the real difference.
There's a phrase from Dr. James Gross at Stanford. He calls it the network effect of psychological resilience.
I like that. Network effect.
Yeah, it sticks, right? The idea that small tweaks in one spot can ripple outwards, creating these cascading benefits across your whole mental landscape.
Absolutely. And connecting this back to our listener, people want knowledge that's quick but also deep.
Right. Practical.
This shows how those seemingly small daily habits, they aren't small at all in the long run. They compound. It's like compound interest, but for your mental resilience.
That's a powerful way to think about it. So, okay, let's map out where we're going today then.
Let's do it.
We're going to look at some really practical areas people can work on. We'll start with morning routines, how those first few moments can set your whole day's tone.
Crucial.
Then we'll dive into emotional regulation skills. After that, how to reframe challenges, turn them into strengths, essentially. We'll definitely explore that physical-mental connection more deeply. And finally, wrap up with the power of evening reflection. How does that sound?
Sounds like a really solid plan. A comprehensive look. Let's start with those mornings.
Okay.
Our sources really emphasize that the first, say, 30 minutes after waking, that's a pretty critical neurological window for you.
Okay, unpack that. A neurological window. What's happening?
Well, it seems what goes on in your brain right then can significantly shape your neural pathways for the rest of the day. It sort of sets you on a path towards being resilient or more reactive.
Like the brain's extra impressionable.
That's a good way to put it. Your prefrontal cortex, the bit that handles decision-making, emotional control, all that executive stuff,
Right.
it's particularly malleable right then. But what do most of us do?
Grab the phone.
Exactly. Straight for the phone. Emails, news, social media.
Mm-hmm.
basically flooding the brain with potential stressors before we're even upright.
Which, thinking about it neurologically, is like training your brain to be reactive all day.
You got it. You're firing up the amygdala, the emotional center, before that prefrontal cortex has really had a chance to properly wake up and take the lead.
Okay, so this leads to the idea of mental priming.
Yes. The idea that certain activities can deliberately shift your brain chemistry and set you up for resilience, it's not just wishful thinking, it's actual neurological adjustment. Morning habits directly influence cortisol levels, that main stress hormone. If you manage cortisol well first thing, you create a sort of biochemical foundation for better emotional regulation throughout the day.
Okay, so what does good priming look like, practically speaking?
The sources talk about something like a morning resilience triad. 3 parts: physical movement, mindful reflection, and intentional planning.
Triad, okay. Movement, reflection, planning. And each has a specific neurological job.
Pretty much. Physical movement, even just a few minutes of stretching or jumping jacks,
Right.
helps regulate that cortisol and releases endorphins. Mood boosters. Shifts your body state straight away.
And the mindful reflection, like meditation or maybe journaling.
That helps activate the prefrontal cortex while calming the amygdala. You're basically strengthening the pathways for rational thought over pure emotional reaction.
Okay. And the third part, intentional planning.
That taps into brain regions linked to focus and purpose. Gives you a sense of control. Primes you to be proactive about challenges, not just reacting when they hit.
We found some pretty compelling examples of this, didn't we?
Yeah, like that senior executive. She does 10 minutes of mobility, 5 of meditation, then 15 planning her priorities.
And she said something like, by the time others hit snooze the third time, I've already set my mindset.
Exactly. Or the trauma surgeon doing jumping jacks, writing down 3 gratitudes, then planning his day.
Mm-hmm.
And he made the point that people think his calm under pressure is just how he is.
Innate. Yeah.
But he says he actively builds it in those quiet morning moments before the chaos starts.
What really strikes you about those examples? What's the key takeaway?
It's the deliberate nature, the intention, and how each part targets a specific brain function we talked about.
Movement for cortisol.
Mindfulness for the prefrontal amygdala balance.
Planning for focus and control.
Yeah, it's concise, but neurologically quite powerful.
And that impact on stress hormones first thing seems really key. Managing morning cortisol creates ripples through the day.
Definitely. It sets up a neurochemical pattern for resilience. That moment later on when you respond calmly instead of flying off the handle, it could genuinely trace back to how you started your morning.
It's like making a deposit in your mental strength bank before the day starts making withdrawals.
That's a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
So many people start the day already in deficit, hitting stressors immediately. These folks are actively building reserves.
So even if it's just, say, 15 focused minutes, establishing some version of this triad movement, reflection, planning can really start to shift those brain patterns.
Consistency is the key. Being intentional with those first moments, you're awake.
Okay, so building on that foundation of daily habits, the sources also talk about a kind of hidden feedback loop, right, between brain and body during emotional challenges.
Yes, this is crucial. It's an unconscious neurological loop that really governs how resilient you are when things get tough emotionally.
Let's dig into that loop, because emotions aren't just feelings floating around, they're physiological, biological events.
Totally. Every emotion kicks off a cascade of neurochemical reactions. And these reactions can either fuel your mental resources or drain them.
Like anxiety, for example.
Right. Anxiety hits the amygdala. That triggers the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight.
Heart races, muscles tense, breathing gets shallow.
Exactly. And all those biological processes burn a lot of energy.
And the common mistake people make, according to the research, is trying to just suppress those feelings, stuff them down.
Yeah, bottle them up. Neuroscientists call it a pressure cooker effect.
Okay.
You think you're handling it, but physiologically, the stress response is still churning away under the surface. It drains your mental energy without resolving anything. Long term, that suppression actually weakens resilience, makes you prone to burnout.
So what's the mentally stronger approach? How do they handle that internal storm?
They learn to intervene in that feedback loop, the one between thoughts, emotions, and behaviors.
Right, the thought, emotion, behavior cycle.
Yeah. Thoughts trigger emotions. Emotions drive behaviors. Behaviors then reinforce the original thoughts. It can easily become a negative spiral.
Can you walk us through a quick example, how that plays out negatively?
Sure. Let's say the thought is, I'm going to bomb this presentation.
Okay.
That thought triggers anxiety. The feeling of anxiety might make you procrastinate, avoid preparing properly, and then the lack of preparation makes the original thought, I'm going to bomb, feel even more true. See the loop.
Yeah, completely self-fulfilling. So how do you break it?
Mentally strong people step in right when the emotion bubbles up. One key technique is emotional labeling, just naming the feeling.
So instead of just feeling bad, you say, okay, I'm feeling frustrated or I'm feeling anxious right now.
Exactly. And that simple act does something neurologically.
What does it do?
It activates the prefrontal cortex again, your rational brain. And research shows that this actually dials down the amygdala's activity during stress, gives you more conscious control.
Interesting. There was also mention of a 90-second rule for emotions.
Yes. That's the idea, that the initial physiological rush of an emotion, the chemicals flooding your body, only lasts about 90 seconds.
90 seconds, that's it.
That's the initial biological wave. After that, any continuation of the feeling is often due to your thoughts feeding it, consciously or unconsciously, choosing to stay in that state.
So mentally strong people use that 90-second window to acknowledge the feeling without letting it hijack their entire response.
Precisely. They notice the physical sensations, they label the emotion, and then they consciously choose how to respond rather than getting swept away by the initial wave. That awareness is critical.
What if the emotion feels really huge, overwhelming? Are there other ways to interrupt the loop then?
Controlled breathing is incredibly powerful. Deep, rhythmic breaths directly activate the parasympathetic nervous system.
The rest and digest system.
Exactly. It's the body's built-in calming mechanism. It counters the fight-or-flight response, lowers heart rate, blood pressure, muscle tension. It's a physical reset button for emotional reactivity.
And every time someone successfully navigates this loop, labels the emotion, maybe uses breathing, chooses a response, what's happening upstairs, neurologically.
You're strengthening the neural pathways for resilience. It's like exercise for your emotional regulation muscles. The more you practice, the better your brain gets at it.
It compounds.
Definitely compounds. Creates a stronger default response over time.
So it's not just about surviving tough emotions, it's actually about building strength from them.
That's a great way to put it. Engaging constructively, not suppressing. You turn potential energy drains into opportunities for growth. Each trigger becomes a rep, strengthening those resilience pathways.
That idea of transforming challenges?
Yeah?
It leads perfectly into our next area, challenge reframing.
Yes. This is profound.
The sources really stress this one.
They do. Because neuroscience shows resilience isn't just managing the emotional fallout. It's about changing how you first perceive the challenge.
Cognitive reframing.
Right. It literally changes your brain's response to adversity.
Yeah.
It can turn potentially harmful stress into something that actually promotes growth. Eustress.
Eustress, beneficial stress. So it boils down to interpretation, doesn't it? When something tough happens, the brain instantly judges threat or opportunity.
That's the crux of it. That split-second call dictates whether you get hit with debilitating stress or that beneficial eustress.
And eustress isn't bad.
No. Unlike harmful stress that sends you into overwhelm, eustress actually activates neural pathways linked to focus, motivation, learning. Think about finally mastering a tough skill or finishing a demanding project.
You feel accomplished, energized even.
Right. That moderate stress actually strengthens neural connections, especially in areas for problem solving and emotional regulation.
So how do mentally strong people consistently lean towards the opportunity interpretation? Is there a process?
Our sources lay out a kind of three-step reframing technique. First is recognition. Just consciously acknowledging the challenge and noticing your thoughts and feelings about it, but without judgment. Pausing the automatic negative reaction.
Getting the prefrontal cortex involved again. Step 1, recognize. What's step 2?
Perspective taking. Stepping back. Looking at it from different angles. Reminding yourself it's temporary. It's not your whole identity.
Creating some distance.
Exactly. Cognitive distance. Helps you see beyond the immediate pain. A powerful trick here is imagining how you'll see this challenge a year from now.
Yeah, that shrinks it down.
Okay, recognize, perspective take. What's the third step?
Opportunity finding. Actively looking for potential benefits or lessons within the challenge.
Not just pretending it's good, but genuinely searching.
It's a deliberate cognitive strategy. It literally helps rewire the brain's threat detection. Every time you spot a potential upside in a difficulty, you strengthen those resilience pathways.
This sounds a lot like post-traumatic growth, people experiencing positive changes after very tough times. Very similar concept. And research shows it's not just a mindset shift. It involves actual neurological changes when you process adversity through these kinds of cognitive frames.
People report stronger relationships, greater appreciation for life.
A stronger sense of personal strength, yeah. These are potential outcomes.
The sources mentioned controlled exposure therapy, too, linking it to this. Gradually facing fears while using reframing.
Yes, whether it's public speaking or fear of rejection. That systematic exposure plus reframing weakens the fear circuits and strengthens the ones for confidence and control.
And this isn't just for huge traumas, right? This applies to daily hassles, too.
Absolutely. Traffic jams, tech glitches, difficult colleagues.
Yeah.
Most people see these as just drains,
Annoyances, yeah.
but they could be reframed as training opportunities. That difficult colleague, a chance to practice emotional regulation, the canceled plan, practice flexible thinking.
And if you do this consistently, the reframing itself becomes more automatic.
That's the goal. The brain literally rewires. Obstacles start looking less like threats and more like catalysts for growth. The threat pathways become less reactive. The opportunity spotting pathways get stronger.
Another compounding effect.
Exactly. Each successful reframe builds your capacity for the next one. Like lifting progressively heavier weights builds muscle. Reframing bigger challenges builds mental strength.
Okay, so we've hit mindset, emotional regulation, but the physical side is crucial too. It's not all in the head.
Not even close. The biological foundation is huge. We can talk all day about thoughts and emotions, but physical habits play a massive, often underrated role in resilience.
The brain is a physical organ.
Right. Its performance is directly tied to how you treat your body.
There's this concept of embodied cognition, how physical states influence mental ones, even posture.
That's right. Research shows adopting open, expansive postures can literally make you feel more powerful and confident. Slouching can trigger vulnerability. Your body sets the stage for mental strength.
It makes you think about trying to mentally tough it out when you're just physically exhausted or running on fumes.
It's like trying to run that marathon on empty, like you said.
Yeah.
You can have all the best mental techniques, but if your basic physical needs aren't met, good luck implementing them effectively.
Sleep deprivation, poor nutrition, inactivity. They undercut everything else.
Exactly. They make even the best psychological strategies a struggle.
And sleep seems to come up again and again as particularly vital.
Oh, absolutely. Sleep quality is like a master switch for emotional responses and decision-making.
How so?
Not enough sleep, your prefrontal cortex gets impaired. That's impulse control, rational thought, gone fuzzy. Meanwhile, the amygdala gets more reactive. So you become way more susceptible to stress, negative emotions. It's a double whammy.
Explains why small problems feel like catastrophes after a bad night's sleep. The brain just doesn't have the resources.
Precisely. And mentally strong people get this. They guard their sleep, not as a luxury, but as a core pillar of their resilience. They know good sleep powers the brain to manage stress.
Okay, sleep is huge. What about movement? Exercise.
Also key. Exercise isn't just for the body. It changes brain chemistry in ways that boost resilience.
How?
Regular activity boosts endorphins, mood elevators, pain reducers. It also helps lower cortisol over time, creates a better neurochemical environment overall.
And it boosts neuroplasticity, right? The brain's ability to adapt and rewire.
Exactly. That adaptability is crucial for navigating challenges creatively. And it doesn't have to be marathon running.
Consistency over intensity.
Consistency is key. Running, weights, yoga, regular movement that pushes you just a little seems most effective for mental strength benefits.
And nutrition. What we eat matters too.
Definitely. Food provides the literal building blocks for brain function. Omega-3s like in fish and walnuts, linked to better mood regulation, cognitive function.
Okay.
Antioxidants from berries, leafy greens. They help protect the brain from oxidative stress, which can impair performance under pressure.
So it's not just general health advice. These food choices directly impact the brain's ability to handle stress by, say, reducing inflammation or supporting neurotransmitters.
Precisely. Mentally strong people see their diet as integral to their mental performance, not separate from it.
It really drives home how intertwined the physical and mental are. You combine good physical habits with the psychological techniques.
And you get a much more robust system. The physical stuff lays the biological groundwork, makes the mental strategies work better, and the mental techniques help you stay motivated for the physical habits. Another positive loop.
Okay, finally, let's talk about the end of the day. The evening reset.
Yes, after navigating the day using these habits, what you do before sleep is also really important for cementing resilience.
It's not just about winding down passively.
No, we often focus on mornings, But evenings offer a huge opportunity. Deliberate reflection before bed can actually create neurological changes that prime you for the next day's challenges. Most people miss this.
What do most people do? Scroll social media, watch TV?
Pretty much. Passive stuff. Which might feel relaxing, but it's a missed chance to actively build resilience. The American Psychological Association actually points to the evening as a key time for integrating the day's experiences through reflection.
And this evening reset has specific parts, like the morning triad.
Kind of. Three main components work together. First, experience review.
Okay.
Taking a moment to consciously revisit key moments from the day, but without judgment, just observing. It trains the brain to process things more objectively, less reactively.
Different from just stewing over bad stuff.
Very different. Second is lesson extraction, identifying what you learned about yourself, others, how you handled things.
Finding the growth opportunity again.
Exactly. Deriving value, especially from difficulties. Psychologists call it meaning-making. It reinforces that reframing habit we discussed and helps you see where your resilience system might need tuning.
Makes sense. Experience review, lesson extraction. What's the third part?
Setting intentions for the next day.
Ah, proactive again.
Right. Instead of just waiting to see what tomorrow throws at you, you proactively decide how you want to approach things. Not just tasks, but choosing specific mental approaches or emotional responses you intend to practice. Gives you that sense of control.
Evening journaling comes up as a good tool for this three-part process.
It really does. Writing helps structure the processing of emotional experiences. Research backs this up. Writing down thoughts, fears, frustrations, even gratitudes significantly develops emotional intelligence. It creates that continuous improvement loop.
And gratitude seems especially powerful in the evening.
Absolutely. It directly counteracts the brain's natural negativity bias. When you consciously scan for and acknowledge positives, you're not just feeling good briefly. You're strengthening neural pathways for resilience. Helps maintain perspective.
Evenings also seem like a good slot for those mindfulness practices.
Definitely. Practicing mindfulness before bed helps widen that gap between stimulus and response. Gives you more space to choose thoughtfully instead of reacting automatically. Reduces anxiety over time.
And self-compassion fits in here too.
Yes. Mentally strong people often use this time to acknowledge their struggles, forgive mistakes, accept imperfection. It counters that harsh inner critic, that perfectionism that can really undermine resilience.
It really sounds like this evening reset fosters a continuous improvement cycle for mental strength.
Yeah.
Reflect, learn, intend, repeat.
Exactly. It lets you identify weak spots in your own system and make targeted adjustments, rather than just throwing general techniques at the wall. It personalizes the process.
So practically, what are some key reflection questions someone could ask themselves each evening?
The sources suggest things like, what challenged me today and how did I respond? Or, what am I grateful for today? Maybe something small I usually overlook. And critically, what specific mental approach or mindset do I want to practice tomorrow? These really integrate the day's learning and set you up proactively.
So wrapping this all up, we've covered a lot of ground. But the big picture is clear, isn't it?
I think so.
Mental strength isn't fixed. It's not something you just have or don't have.
Absolutely not.
It's something you actively build, cultivate, through these consistent, deliberate, daily practices we've talked about.
That's the core message. Like building physical muscle, mental muscle grows with daily attention, daily intention. It's an ongoing process.
And what's really powerful is how it all connects. Working on the morning routine, emotional regulation, reframing, physical health, evening reflection.
It creates that positive feedback loop.
Right. Improvement in one area boosts the others. It's a whole system getting stronger together.
Exactly. It's a systematic approach, acknowledging that resilience is complex and giving you practical ways to strengthen it from multiple angles every day.
So for everyone listening, the big takeaway is, this is within your reach. Your mind can be your greatest asset, especially when you take conscious control of how you respond to life's challenges. Start small, maybe pick one area we discussed, be consistent. You will see your resilience transform.
Absolutely. Yeah. And maybe the final thought to leave people with is this. Your mind is incredibly powerful, potentially your strongest ally, but it needs you to be its architect. You have to intentionally build that strength.
Take that first step. Be consistent.
The journey to resilience is continuous, yeah? But the rewards, they're truly immeasurable.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Bye, everyone.